So we all know by now, and I point this out, by the way, every day. I include this as a quiz question to ask you when the election is. Well, we're now less than a week away. So November 2nd, it's a Sunday. That's Montreal's municipal election. And the message from our next guest is if you're still set on not voting in this election, perhaps it's time to wake up. And I will point out, by the way, if this advanced voting, which is only at 9.3%, which happened yesterday, if this is any indication, who knows, we may be on track to once again have less than 40% of people turn out for a municipal election. Samantha Reusch is Executive Director of Apathy is Boring, and she's on the line. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, Aaron.
I should mention, I'm used to calling you, not used to, but in the past I have called you Sam, and I should let people know as well, you are Suzanne Deshotel's daughter. And you've been in this organization now, you said, for about 8 years and leading it for the last 4, so congratulations to you. I guess my first question is, how hard is it, or maybe why is it so hard, do you think, to convince people to go out and vote in a municipal election?
I think I spent a lot of time thinking about this because municipal elections in so many ways are the ones that are the most close to us, or the most tangible. It's your garbage pickup, it's your infrastructure, it's bike lanes, it's all those things. But I think one of the things that has become most challenging is a lot of people don't necessarily consume a lot of local media anymore. And I think the stories and the narratives that they have around like why things are working or not working don't always necessarily connect back to those hyper-local governments. And so when people think about participation, they think about the federal, they think about provincial, but they're not always thinking about the power that municipal elections have or their capacity to make change at that level. And so there's just this really big disconnect, I think, particularly with young people about what it means to participate in a municipal election.
Which, when you stop and think about it, is kind of weird because, as you said, what you do municipally affects your life more directly than provincially or federally. You'd think there'd be more chance or more people would be out voting in a municipal election.
Yeah, you'd hope so. And often the complaints that people bring forward, in the most day-to-day way are the ones related to our municipal government.
Right.
But nonetheless, it just doesn't seem to connect through, again, particularly for young people. I don't think they're consuming a lot of content on social media necessarily related to the city or, again, to the powers that the cities have. So it just creates this sort of gap, and people feel like it's not worth their time to participate or get involved, unfortunately.
So with respect, I find the social media aspect really interesting, right? Because let's face it, a lot of younger people specifically are probably accessing social media more than traditional local media, right? But if that's the case, you'd think 20 years ago, perhaps things might have been a lot different. I think historically, though, correct me if I'm wrong, people just choose for one reason or another not to get involved in municipal elections. So if social media wasn't an issue then, what else can we find as a reason why people don't go vote?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, we can't blame social media for all the ills in the world as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
I do feel like, again, it comes back to like those really big higher order things when we're talking about the economy, especially when people are feeling the tension of the economy. Obviously, we all remember during the 70s, 80s, 90s in Quebec, there were other levels of government that I think a lot of us were paying much closer attention to. Yeah. So municipal politics just tends to get left by the wayside. And yet we do also see this really interesting and horrible dynamic. Something like over 1,000 municipal councillors and mayors quit in the last term in Quebec between 2021 and 2025. I think Radio-Canada has that latest stat. And so we can also see that at the same time, these local politicians are facing a lot of harassment. They're facing a lot of backlash to their policies, and they're burning out at a rapid level. So we're also sort of burning through a lot of candidates. So the municipal ecosystem, I think, is a lot different. The cost is a lot higher to go into it, and I think the glory is a lot less as well, because the people who don't have serious complaints or who aren't motivated to sort of go after those counselors maybe aren't paying attention at all. And so it's a tough level of government to work in. I admire anyone who goes into it.
I'd wonder one thing as well. I guess it's pretty hard to measure cynicism, but you know what? I'll tell you for example, when we take callers on this, and I look at the last number, I think the number of Montrealers still undecided, even now, a week before the election, is somewhere close to 40%. I think it's 38%. Yeah. And you wonder, people call and complain about stuff every day, how bad things are with either traffic or bike paths or whatever it happens to be. But that doesn't necessarily get translated into actually getting up and going to vote, which is the part that puzzles me, right? You can effect change, by voting, but it seems most people prefer to just go on and complain and then not vote.
I think it's funny. I think a lot of people think, you're right, and I think a lot of people do think that it's like a fait accompli in a way. They see polling, and they're like, okay, well, that's where it's going, and something disconnects in people's brains, and they go, oh, well, there's no point, because, like, it's already decided in some way, and it's really not. I mean, we just had the judgment come down today on that, the federal riding in Terrebonne, which was won by one vote. Like, it really does make a difference if you turn out. You can impact the outcome. I think people just kind of assume that there's not much they can do in an election, but that's just not true.
Yeah, as I said, I don't know how you measure, if you can measure cynicism, but you hear it all the time when you talk to people. Just the fact that it doesn't translate into actually doing something about it other than complaining is kind of depressing.
We do measure things like why people don't vote. So we'll do things like talk to non-voters or do polling, and often it comes back with things like they don't trust politicians, they don't think it'll make a difference. So the cynicism is there, it's measurable, and it often leads people to not vote, sadly, because you are right that it would make a difference.
So what's the message? You're running with an organization called Apathy is Boring. I would ask you why you got involved with this to begin with, because I'm curious.
Yeah, I guess I'm someone who's always been, civically minded. I care about people being able to have a say in their governments, and I think that just led me down the path. Young people participate in the lowest rates often, so having that early intervention and getting people involved when they can first vote is a really key, a really key change that you can make to help them participate over their lifetime. And I love working with young people. I love working on democracy. It's a timely topic now, I think, with everything going on. So more people are taking interest in the work that we do. But we don't just do elections. We also work on at the community level, helping young people, start their own initiatives there. We train young people to do advocacy work. We focus on things like democratic reform. So we take a really wide approach to improving our democracy and helping young people lead in that space.
And when are you going to run for public office?
I think I like it over here on the nonpartisan side.
Sure?
I think I'm going to stay over here. Yeah. Thank you, though, Aaron.
I will ask one last question, right? You talk about young people and the fact that they're sort of detached from this. When you talk to these people directly, what's their main rationale for not voting?
Often they think politicians are all the same, that they're corrupt, that they don't listen to them, that they don't care, that they have these like sort of special interests that aren't aligned with their interests. Like non-voters actually often, the exception of like some groups that, don't know an election is happening or don't know how to participate. Most young people that don't participate have a very clear idea of why they don't. And often it comes down to that disconnect between politicians and their lives.
Well, let's hope the message gets through, because we need the more people we have go vote, the better off we are, regardless of who you vote for. And I will just remind everyone again, the vote municipally is on Sunday. Hey, Samantha, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.